Welcome back. Tonight, I'll be sharing 4 horrific true Christmas horror stories. These are not the kind of warm family Christmas memories you see in movies. These are the ones people try to forget, things they swear really happened, things that still keep them up at night every December. Turn off the lights, plug in your headphones, and don't look out your window. Let's get into the first story. Story 1. The Man in the Santa Suit. This happened on Christmas Eve of 2019, when I was 17. Back then, my parents still did the whole family Christmas thing. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in a small town. Every year, people went way too hard on decorations. Inflatable Santas, glowing reindeer, lights all over every roof. Our street always looked like a Christmas commercial. That night, my parents were at a Christmas party a few blocks away. They trusted me to stay home alone. I didn't mind. I liked the peace and the excuse to just sit on the couch, watch movies, and eat junk. By around 10:30 p.m., it had started snowing pretty hard, the kind of snow that makes everything outside look blurry and quiet. I turned off most of the lights in the house and just left the Christmas tree on. The colored lights were reflecting off the window, and for a while, it actually felt kind of cozy. Then, sometime around 11, the doorbell rang. It made me jump. Nobody ever came to our door that late, especially not on Christmas Eve. I paused my movie and just sat there for a second, listening, hoping maybe I imagined it. The doorbell rang again, longer this time. I got up, grabbed my phone, and walked to the front door. Our front door had one of those narrow windows along the side, but the glass was frosted, so you could only see shapes and movement. I could see the outline of someone standing there. I remember calling out, "Hello?" No response. I cleared my throat and said a little louder, "Who is it?" A man's voice answered, sort of muffled through the door. "Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!" I could see the shape of a Santa hat. I relaxed a little. We did sometimes have people from local churches or charity groups drop off flyers or cookies this time of year. Still weird at 11 p.m., but not impossible. "Sorry, my parents aren't home," I called out. "Can I help you?" He chuckled again. "I've got a little something for the good boy or girl who lives here." That's when I started feeling uneasy. Something about the way he said it sounded forced, like he wasn't actually trying to be friendly. He was trying to sound like Santa, but it just came off wrong. I stayed behind the door. You can just leave it there," I said. "I'm not opening the door." He stepped closer. I could see his shoulders now. A thick red coat, the Santa hat. He leaned to the side like he was trying to peek through the frosted glass. "You don't trust Santa?" he asked, almost sounding offended. My heart started beating faster. I backed away from the door a little. "I'm not allowed to open the door for strangers, sorry." There was a pause. No sound, no movement. Then, in a suddenly flat, cold voice, he said, "Your parents aren't home, are they?" Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't answer. I slowly moved away from the door and grabbed my phone. There was another long moment of silence, and then the doorknob jiggled. He was trying to open it. It was locked, thankfully, but I heard the metal rattle, then shake harder, like he was really putting effort into it. I whispered to myself, "Oh my God," and dialed my dad. He picked up quickly, probably because he'd been checking to see if I was okay. "Hey, everything good?" he asked. "Whisper, Dad, someone's at the door trying to get in." The doorknob stopped. Then a slow knock, 3 times, heavy. My dad suddenly sounded wide awake. "Lock the back door, lock the windows, go to my room and stay there. I'm calling the police right now. Don't open the door for anyone." I remember my voice shaking. "He's dressed like Santa!" My dad didn't even react to that. "Go, now." I hurried down the hallway, flipping locks as I went. I could hear footsteps on the porch, slow, walking from one side to the other, like he was checking the windows. Then I heard something that still makes me sick to think about. He tapped on the front window right by the tree and said in a sing-song voice, "I can see you." I froze in the hallway and slowly looked back toward the living room. I realized I'd left the living room light on. From the outside, he probably could see the back of my head as I'd been sitting on the couch earlier. I turned the light off and everything went dark, except for the soft glow of the Christmas tree. I heard his footsteps walk away, then come closer to the side of the house, then to the back. That's when I remembered the kitchen blinds were half open. I crept to the kitchen, staying low, and gently pulled the blinds all the way down. The second I did, someone knocked on the glass, right at my eye level. I jumped back and almost screamed. He laughed, right on the other side of that thin piece of glass. I ran down the hall and locked myself in my parents' bedroom. I sat on the floor by the bed, on the side where you couldn't see me from the window, and I just listened. For a while, there was nothing, just the wind outside and the faint ticking of the hallway clock. Then, I heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, heavy steps, moving above me, crossing from one side to the other, the sound of boots on shingles. He was on the roof, like some sick version of Santa. My dad called me back about 5 minutes later. It felt like an hour. "The cops are almost there," he said. "Just stay put. Don't move." I whispered, "He's on the roof." My dad went silent. Then he said, "They're pulling up." I heard faint sirens in the distance, getting louder. The footsteps on the roof stopped. A few seconds later, I heard what sounded like a jump, a dull thud near the front of the house, and then nothing. When the police checked around the house, they found footprints in the snow, big, heavy boot prints going from the sidewalk to our porch, then around the house, and then up to the side where the roof was lowest. They said it looked like someone climbed using the railing and a frozen bush that was half broken now. They never found the guy. We installed cameras a couple weeks later, and that's when the worst part of all of this came out. My dad was reviewing the footage from earlier that evening, just to see when the Santa guy first appeared. He scrubbed through several hours of footage, nothing unusual. Then he paused. At around 9:10 p.m., more than an hour before the doorbell first rang, the camera showed something that made my blood run cold. It was me, sitting on the couch, watching TV. You could see the reflection of the TV screen on the window. And then, behind me, in the reflection of the glass, for just a couple seconds, you could see a figure standing in the dark hallway. Tall, still, wearing a Santa hat, behind me, before the doorbell ever rang. Story 2. The Secret Santa That Knew Too Much. This happened when I was in college. I lived in a small off-campus house with 3 roommates. It was old, creaky, and always drafty in winter, but it was cheap. Our friend group had a tradition. Every December, we did Secret Santa. We'd draw names, set a budget, and exchange gifts a few days before Christmas break. That year, we decided to make it more fun. Instead of just one gift, we had to leave 3 small gifts secretly throughout the week, each with a note that gave little hints about who we were, without revealing it. I thought it sounded like a fun game. It wasn't. I drew the name of my friend Liv. I got her some small stuff like candy, fuzzy socks, and a cute keychain. For my notes, I wrote little jokes only she would get, but nothing too personal. That was the whole point. Keep it light. On Monday, everybody started getting their first gifts. They were cheap and silly. We all laughed and tried to guess who we had. On Wednesday morning, I woke up to find my first gift sitting outside my bedroom door. It was a small box wrapped in simple red paper with a white ribbon. There was a card taped on top with my name on it. No one else was awake yet, so I took it back into my room and opened it. Inside was a Christmas ornament, a round red ornament with my initials written on it in silver marker. Cute, normal, thoughtful. I smiled. Then I opened the little note. You always stare at this spot when you can't sleep. I see you. Merry first gift. I frowned. That was weird. I looked at the ornament again. On the back, there was a tiny black dot, like a little sticker or maybe a chipped spot. I didn't think much of it, but the message bothered me. I did have insomnia sometimes, and yeah, I did stare at the same corner of my ceiling when I couldn't sleep, but how would my secret Santa know that? I tried to brush it off as a creepy joke. Maybe it was just a lucky guess. The next gift came on Friday. I got home from my evening exam, exhausted, and went straight to my room. On my pillow, there was another small wrapped package with my name on it. This one was heavier. I sat down, ripped it open, and found a mug. A plain white coffee mug. On one side, in black font, it said, Night Owl. On the other, though, was a printed photo. At first, I thought it was just some generic stock photo, but then my stomach dropped. It was a picture of my bedroom door, taken from the hallway. The door was slightly open, and you could see part of my face, lying on the bed, eyes closed, like I was sleeping. I stared at it for a long time, my hands shaking. It looked exactly like my door, my hallway, my bed, and I did sleep with my door slightly open. I opened the note, and it said, You really should close your door at night. I've walked past you so many times. Second gift, one more to go. I felt cold all over. This wasn't funny anymore. I went to the living room where my roommates were watching a Christmas movie. I held up the mug and the note. Okay, whoever has me, this is not cool. They all looked confused. They read the note, and one by one, their faces changed. My dude, that's seriously messed up. Liv shook her head fast. We said no creepy stuff, remember? Who has you? We went around and tried to guess, but everyone swore it wasn't them. A couple of them even seemed a little scared. That house had thin walls. If someone had been walking around at night and taking pictures, we would have heard something, right? I decided that night I was locking my door and sleeping with a chair pushed under the doorknob. The third gift was supposed to be on Sunday. By Sunday morning, I already knew something was wrong. I woke up around 8 a.m. to use the bathroom. When I pulled my door open, something slid and knocked against my foot. It was a small box, red wrapping paper, white ribbon. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. My heart was racing, and I suddenly didn't want to open it in my room. I walked to the kitchen where my roommates were making coffee. "What's that?" Liv asked. "Third gift," I said quietly. They watched as I set the box on the table and slowly opened it. Inside was a stack of photos tied together with twine. I felt a ball of dread in my stomach. The first photo was of our kitchen, taken at night. The only light came from the microwave clock. You could see the table, the chairs, and Alex sitting there, half asleep, scrolling through his phone.
The second photo was of Liv knocking on our front door holding a bag of groceries. The angle was from inside the house, behind the blinds. The third was of my other roommate, Dylan, asleep on the couch, mouth open, TV still on. The fourth was of me, lying on my side, in bed, eyes closed, taken from the foot of my bed. There were at least 20 photos, all of us, all around the house, taken at different times, different days, some from inside, some from outside looking in, always from angles that meant the person was in the house or right up against our windows. I flipped to the last photo and my throat closed. It was taken that night. I was in my bed, turned toward the wall. You could clearly see the chair pushed up under the doorknob. The note was at the bottom of the stack. "You all look so peaceful. This is my favorite picture of you. I'll miss you when you move out. P.S. You really do talk in your sleep." I looked up at my roommates. Their faces were pale. "We need to call the cops," Liv said. We searched the house from top to bottom first because, honestly, we were scared the person might still be inside. We checked closets, under beds, the basement, everything. Nothing. When the police arrived, they took the photos and the notes seriously, but there wasn't much they could do. No obvious fingerprints, no video cameras in the house. But the cop did notice something. On the first ornament I'd gotten, the red one with my initials, he held it up, squinted, and twisted the top off. Inside the ornament, hidden behind a small clear plastic piece, was a tiny lens, a camera. Someone had been watching me, watching all of us, for who knows how long. We ended Secret Santa early that year. Everyone was too freaked out to finish. We moved out as soon as our lease ended. To this day, we have no idea which one of our friends had my name, or if it was even one of them at all.
Story 3. Footsteps in the Christmas Attic. When I was 14, my parents took us to spend Christmas at my aunt and uncle's house. They lived in an old farmhouse about an hour outside the city. It was one of those places that looked beautiful in the snow. Big yard, huge pine trees, a long driveway. But the inside always gave me a weird feeling. The house was over 100 years old. The wood floors creaked no matter how soft you walked. The hallways felt too narrow. The ceilings were low in some rooms, and there were these small doors that led into storage spaces and crawl spaces. I was always creeped out by one specific storage door at the end of the upstairs hallway. It was shorter than a regular door, so you had to duck to get inside. My aunt told me it led up to a small attic room where they kept old decorations and boxes. That Christmas, all the bedrooms were full, so I got stuck sleeping in the guest room, which just so happened to be right next to that short attic door. The first night, everything was fine. I fell asleep to the muffled sound of my cousins laughing downstairs and the faint hum of some Christmas movie playing. At around 2 or 3 in the morning, I woke up. At first, I thought it was just the house settling or the wind, but then I realized I was hearing something very specific. Footsteps, directly above me, slow, creaking back and forth, the sound of someone walking in the attic. I held my breath and listened. The steps moved from one end of the room to the other, then stopped, then started again. It sounded like they were pacing. I told myself it had to be my uncle. Maybe the attic was connected to another room and he was just moving around. I eventually fell back asleep. The next morning at breakfast, I asked, "Hey, is the attic above the guest room?" My aunt looked up from the stove. "Yes, that little door in the hallway goes up there. Why?" "I thought I heard someone up there last night," I said. My uncle frowned. "No one went up there," he said. "The door sticks in the winter. Takes a pretty good shove to open it." I let it go, but it stayed in my head all day. The second night, I fell asleep easily. All the Christmas food and sugar knocked me out. But again, sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up. This time, the footsteps were already happening. Creak, creak, creak. They were slower now, almost like the person was dragging their feet. I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding. The house was completely silent otherwise. No TV, no talking, no pipes, just those steps. I don't know how long I lay there, but after a while, they stopped. I relaxed a little, thinking maybe it was over. Then I heard something else, a soft scraping sound right behind the wall next to my bed, like something hard being dragged across wood. It was quiet, but definitely there. It moved from the corner of the room toward the wall that connected to the hallway. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks, right above the headboard. That was enough. I grabbed my blanket, ran out of the guest room, and slept on the living room couch the rest of the night. Nobody noticed me there until my aunt came down early in the morning. She asked why I wasn't in my room, and I told her about the footsteps and the knocking. She gave me this tight, uncomfortable smile. This old place makes a lot of noises. Try not to think about it too much. But I could tell she was lying. Her eyes didn't match her voice. Later that day, I overheard my aunt and uncle talking in the kitchen. They didn't know I was nearby. "It's starting again," my aunt whispered. "It's just the house," my uncle said, but he didn't sound sure. "Last time it was around Christmas too," she said. "Remember when Mom stayed in that room?" I didn't hear the rest. That night, I begged my parents to let me sleep in their room on the floor. They said no, I was being dramatic, and the house was fine. I ended up back in the guest room. I went to bed fully dressed with a flashlight in my hand. Sometime after midnight, I woke up again. The room felt heavier, colder. My breath was fogging slightly in the air, even though the heat was on in the house. At first, I didn't hear anything, just silence. But then, the doorknob to the attic door in the hallway rattled. It rattled softly at first, like someone was testing it, then harder, metal scraping against metal. I stared at my bedroom door, watching the bottom crack for any shadow or movement. I wanted to get up and lock it, but I was frozen. The doorknob stopped. A second later, slam. The sound of the attic door being thrown open. Then heavy footsteps in the hallway, slow, uneven, coming closer to my door. I jumped up, ran to the door, and quietly turned the lock, praying it wouldn't click too loud. The doorstop stopped right outside my room. I could see a shadow under the gap, just standing there, not moving. Then, slowly, the doorknob turned. It twisted once, twice, stopped at the locked position, tried again, harder. Whoever was out there was putting their full weight into it. The door shook slightly in the frame. I backed away, flashlight shaking in my hand, and whispered, "Please go away, please go away." After what felt like forever, the doorknob stopped. The shadow stayed for a few more seconds, then moved. The footsteps went past my room and into the far corner of the hallway. Then there was a new sound, heavy scraping, like something big being dragged across the floor. The next morning, when everyone was awake, I told my parents everything. I was shaking as I talked. My aunt and uncle looked worried now, like they couldn't pretend anymore. My uncle finally sighed and said, "Let's check it out." We all went upstairs. The attic door at the end of the hallway was closed again, but the floor in front of it had fresh scratch marks, as if something heavy had scraped across it. He opened the door with effort. The hinges groaned. A cold draft rushed out. We climbed the short stairs into the attic room. It was small and low, with boxes and old furniture.
Dust covered everything, except for one narrow path of footprints across the floor. They were clear, bare footprints, human, leading from the attic door to the far wall and back again, like someone pacing. My aunt covered her mouth. There was an old wooden chair facing a small, dirty window that looked down on the front yard. On the seat of the chair, there was a plate with half-eaten Christmas cookies. My aunt whispered, "Those were on the kitchen counter. No one had brought them up there." We followed the footprints carefully. They didn't belong to any of us. They were too wide to be mine, too long to be my aunt's, and none of the men had gone up there in bare feet in the middle of the night. The footprints started at the center of the room and ended at the wall. Not the stairs, not the door, the wall. Like whoever it was had just vanished. We left the attic and shut the door. My aunt insisted we all sleep downstairs that night. The weirdest part, when I was packing to leave the next day, I found something in my suitcase that I definitely didn't put there. At the very bottom, under my clothes, was a small folded piece of paper. In shaky, almost childlike handwriting, it said, "The footsteps stop when someone watches with me. Don't leave for next Christmas. Come back and stay in this room again." There was a crumb from one of the cookies stuck to the corner of the note.
Story 4. The Carolers at 3 a.m. My story happened last year, Christmas Eve, in a quiet suburban neighborhood where I live alone. It was my first Christmas after a bad breakup. I wasn't in the mood for holidays. I didn't put up a tree, I didn't hang lights. The only sign of Christmas in my house was a single scented candle my sister had given me. Outside, though, the whole street was lit up. Almost every house had decorations. Some neighbors even organized caroling that week. I'd heard them a couple of nights earlier, walking down the street singing. It was kind of nice, actually, comforting background noise. On Christmas Eve, I stayed up late, scrolling my phone and half watching a Christmas movie. Around 2:30 a.m., I finally turned everything off and went to bed. I don't remember falling asleep, but I must have dozed off pretty fast. I woke up to singing. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but no, it was clear. Soft voices, multiple people, singing together. It sounded far away at first. I checked my phone. It was 3:03 a.m. I groaned, thinking maybe my neighbors were partying really late. The singing slowly got louder. It took me a minute to realize what song it was. Silent Night. It sounded almost too perfect. The voices were in sync, slow and gentle. No laughter, no talking between lines, no off-key moments like regular people would have. Just this smooth, slow version of the song that somehow felt wrong at that hour. I got out of bed and walked to my bedroom window. I pulled the curtain back a little. There, standing on the sidewalk in front of my house, were 5 figures. They were dressed in what looked like old-fashioned caroling clothes, long, dark coats, scarves, hats. Their faces were hard to see from my angle, but they were all holding what looked like music sheets. They faced my house, just my house. None of the other homes on the street were lit up. No one else was outside. I remember thinking, why are they caroling at 3 a.m.? I watched them, half expecting them to eventually move on down the street, but they stayed in front of my house, singing verse after verse. I realized something else after a minute. The temperature had dropped a lot that day. It was below freezing, but they weren't breathing out any steam, no visible breath. I tried to laugh at myself. Maybe it was just the angle, maybe I was imagining it. The song ended. The group fell silent. I thought, okay, they'll leave now. But they didn't. They just stood there, perfectly still, facing my house. I didn't move either. I stood by the window, holding my breath. The street was completely quiet, except for the faint hum of a distant car somewhere far away. Then, in perfect unison, all 5 of them tilted their heads up and looked directly at my window. I froze. Even in the dim light, I could tell something was off about their faces. They were too smooth, too pale, no features I could make out from where I was, just dark hollows where the eyes should be. It was like they were wearing masks, or like there was nothing there at all. I yanked the curtain shut and backed away from the window, my heart pounding. I tried to convince myself it was just shadows, bad lighting, sleepiness. Then they started singing again. But this time, it wasn't Silent Night. They were singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," but slower, much slower, drawn out and strange, like a record playing at the wrong speed. I stood in the middle of my bedroom, not sure what to do. Call the cops and say, "Hey, there are creepy carolers outside?" What were they going to do? I decided to go to the living room where I could peek through the side of the curtains without being so obvious. As I walked down the hallway, the singing suddenly stopped. I got to the front window and very carefully pulled the curtain back by just an inch. The sidewalk in front of my house was empty. They were gone. I scanned up and down the street. No movement, no people, no group of carolers walking away, just empty road and quiet snow. I dropped the curtain and exhaled shakily. I told myself I was overtired. Maybe my brain twisted some dream with the memory of the normal carolers from earlier in the week. I went back to bed, but I left the hallway light on. I was just starting to drift off again when I heard it. Not singing this time, humming. A low, slow humming of Silent Night coming from somewhere inside the house. I sat up straight in bed, my heart racing. The sound was faint, not in my room, not right outside the door. It sounded like it was coming from above me, from the attic. I stared at the ceiling, listening. The humming continued for a while, then faded. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, when the sun finally came up, I forced myself to check the attic. I told myself it was probably just the heater, or pipes, or some weird house noise. I pulled down the attic ladder and climbed up. The air was cold and dusty. My flashlight game cut through the dark, revealing old boxes and insulation. Nothing looked disturbed. I was about to go back down when something near the attic window caught my eye. There was a small spot on the dirty glass where someone had wiped away the dust. Just a little circle, about the size of a face, like someone had pressed their forehead there to look outside, or inside. On the wooden beam under the window, there were 5 small, perfect circles in the dust, like fingertip marks, from someone or something gripping the beam while they leaned forward. The rest of the attic was untouched. I cleaned that spot off and tried to forget about it. I told my sister about it later as a weird story, but I left out the part about the faces and the humming. It sounded too crazy. I managed to convince myself it was all some weird combination of sleep and loneliness. Until this year. A few nights ago, my neighbor texted me a short video they took on their phone. It was a recording from their front window around midnight. The camera was shaky, but you could see them. A group of 5 figures standing on the sidewalk in front of my house. Long, dark coats, hats. They're facing my house. You can't hear the singing in the video, just the faint wind against the mic. But my neighbor texted, "These carolers are weird. They only stand in front of your place. They never knocked or rang our bell, just stared, then walked off. Kinda creepy, LOL." In the last frame of the video, one of the figures turns slightly, just enough that you can see the side of their face. Smooth, pale, no features. That was 4 horrific true Christmas horror stories. Which stories scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.